Chris Rigg is the latest academy product to make a major first-team breakthrough at Sunderland.
How cool is that from Chris Rigg?
However, Chris's story isn't the reality for most young players. In this episode, we're looking into the problems surrounding academy football and just why do so many players enter club academies and not make it to the ultimate goal. We'll be joined by Sunderland under-21s footballer Ben Crompton.
It's a lot of hard work. I think this is what you want to do from when you're a young lad. You want to sign that first professional contract.
And Sunderland under-18s academy coach Jordan Moore to discuss this very issue.
We have to be really honest and go like, a 12-year-old, do we think they'll get the next contract?
This is Word on Wearside. Welcome guys, today I'm joined with Finlay Anderson and Blake Burns. As we know, academy football is really hard to get into. Only 180 of the 1.5 million boys playing youth football get into academies. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it must be tough for the amount of young people who do go into academies to actually make it. Because I think football is like the best job in the world, the amount of money they get paid, the lifestyles they lead. And I think it's for children growing up, I think everyone wants to do it because it's seen as fun and entertaining and like a social activity. I think that's probably why loads of people go into it, but obviously not many are going to end up just because of the amount of numbers who can actually play in a team. There's only 11 in a team, and if you think the sheer amount of numbers who go into it, it's hard for people to end up in the academies and then making it all the way through.
I think there's lots of things that could affect it as well. You could come through academy of your hometown club, and then they could have the money to buy someone, and then your position could be gone.
Yeah, so we asked Sunderland academy coach Jordan Moore for his thoughts on this issue.
We have to be really honest and go like, a 12-year-old, do we think they'll get the next contract? And you're always thinking one contract ahead. If you think one contract ahead, then it makes you really zoom in on what you think the players need. So I think sometimes people get stuck in the system as a number. So that would be one reason, numbers. I think another reason could be around early contract offers. Some people might get early offers and actually that potential not coming to light at the end. Possibly a third reason would be physicality can cover up a lot of technical deficiencies, particularly at younger ages.
Yes, so obviously that's a manager's viewpoint. From a player, it must be really difficult as your education's getting stopped, you're getting dragged out of lessons, and as a young person, it must be difficult growing up because it's not just a normal childhood.
Yeah, I think there was a stat that said like over 10,000 to 12,000 people were involved in the youth system at one time, and that's a hefty number if you think about all the young people who we spoke about who want to become footballers. And from an educational point of view, we've spoke about how many players don't make it and they're having their education cut short for such a long period of time to pursue this dream. I think it must be tough.
The sacrifices probably, once they've made it, they don't really care anymore. They're glad they've made them sacrifices, but for the ones who don't make it, they're probably thinking, why did I even bother? And not just the ones who didn't make it, but the parents are probably thinking the same. They've made them sacrifices as well.
We're going to be hearing from the parent of someone who hasn't made it in club academies later in the show.
And also a player who hasn't made it later in the show. We recently spoke to Sunderland Academy player Ben Crompton in depth, and this is what he had to say on the sacrifices that he's had to make.
As a footballer, like that's all you want to do and that's all you want to focus on. So, like I'm pretty sure all lads are really like tunnel vision on what they want to be doing. So, yeah, I think parents kind of like stay on top of you, but yeah, the motivation's always to play football and. Comes with a lot of pressure as well at school, obviously at being like the academy lad and everyone knows that you're a footballer, so I think there's a lot of expectation and you kind of put pressure on yourself to succeed really. It's still tough now, like I still miss my family and my friends, talking to them as much as possible and go home when I can and they come up to see me, so it's another sacrifice really and I wouldn't want to be doing anything else, so it's a good sacrifice. Took some adapting, but hopefully all pay off.
Obviously that's Ben's side of the story, but there is another side. As we've already discussed, there is a lot of young players who simply just don't make it. It must be really hard for them, don't you think?
Say a child joins an academy at the age of 4, they've got no idea what's going to happen to them, like, and how hard it's going to be at the end. At 4 years old, someone would probably think like they're gonna play football when they're older. they're probably not expecting that someone's going to go, you're not good enough.
Build on that. I think that there must be like a psychological element for kids who end up like not getting the contract, because that's realistically, if they've been in the academy from like the age of like 6, and we'll hear from Luke in a moment of someone who's been in the academy for a long years and has just recently been let go. It is hard because that's all they've known from a young age of their lifestyle, going to football on a weekend, coming home, going education, being pulled out of education, things like that. It's got to be hard for them to like rearrange their lives.
You mentioned Luke there, fellow student here at the uni, and we can hear from him now after he faced the tougher side of not one but 2 academies.
So I basically got to the end of the season, so I sat down with the boss of the manager and the manager, and basically they pretty much laid it out quite simple. They just said that I was not good enough to be a footballer and that it was just not going to work, so I wasn't big enough. And what they do with academies, if you don't know, like they can kind of estimate how, like through a lot of tests, like how tall you're going to end up being. And they knew I wasn't going to pretty much grow for another 5 years. So they just pretty much released me and said that they'd want to keep me in the development, but they wanted to basically release me from the academy because I wasn't going to be big enough for them. And they thought that I was lacking in a lot of confidence, which obviously I was at the time. Obviously, being 10-year-old, hearing that you're not good enough to be in an academy, and you're not good enough, and you're not going to make it as a footballer. Obviously, it's devastating. I mean, I lost a lot of love for football after that. I didn't want to play again because I was just devastated. I mean, when he told me, obviously, I put on a brave face, but after I obviously cried my eyes out because I was only 10, and I'd been dieting, for example, for the last year, because you had to diet in the academies too, which is something people don't talk about enough. Like dieting as an 8-year-old and being told you can't have sweets, you can't have pop. It's like, it's a lot of pressure, and it hurts like a little bit, because you see all your mates drinking pop and having sweets, and you're literally not allowed to do it. So then you have that sacrifice and you think, oh, well, at least in the long run, I could be a footballer. And when that dream kind of ends, yeah, it's crushing, especially such a young age when you can't process things.
We've heard from Luke there, and you can listen to Luke's episode on Word on Wearside, as well as others throughout the series, online. Blake spoke earlier about parents' sacrifices along their child's journey, and now we hear from Luke's mum about her experiences and the tough challenges she's had to face.
Well, I think as a parent, at first you want your child to have the best opportunities, and when that came along, we thought, oh, great, until you get down to the brass tacks of it, which is giving up your social life, basically, to ferry you to numerous training sessions in the week, then to take you down as far as a 3-hour trip down to Lincoln was as far as you went, I think, and that was on a weekend for maybe about 10-15 minutes play, then all the way back. Monetary as well, so then you've got your petrol costs, you've got your food costs, sometimes overnight stays, so there are a lot of sacrifices, but then you think of, it's an opportunity that comes knocking for your child.
We'll end how we started with Chris Rigg. Obviously, we heard the commentary of his lucky tap-in against my Middlesbrough team earlier in the season. He's just the latest example of one of the many players who have come through the academy pathway. What are your thoughts on that?
I think it's immense for the club to have. We've seen like the change of the model in recent years, but for the club to have current examples of people making it from the youth system through the 21s into the first team, like Chris Rigg has done, all by missing the under 21s and going straight from the 18s to the first team. We heard the commentary at the beginning, as you've said, against your Middlesbrough. As a Sunderland fan, it's a great goal. It was great, and we heard from Jordan at the beginning. He has been one of Chris Rigg's coaches through the years. I think for the club to have pathways for the young people coming through the local academies, to see that there is an example of you can make it. It's just massive. What do you think, Blake?
Just to point out, it was actually a goal of the month winner. You've just got a 17-year-old who looks like he's dominating the whole of that midfield. He's basically played above his age at every age level. And at 17 years old, he's got at least a 25 million price tag on his head already. And that's only going to grow. He's going to achieve big things.
And I'm sure from a club perspective, I know it's bringing it to money, but to get that amount of money that they will end up getting for Chris Rigg, depending on what happens this season and as the future progresses, that is massive for it to have that much money that you're going to be intaking from an academy product. It's just great.
I think that shows the positives of continuing from a young age and kind of the sacrifices that are made because of what you can achieve and what he is achieving now. And I'm sure the memories that he's got of the beginning of his season, partly down to them sacrifices that were made.
This has been Academy Life on Word on Wearside. I've been Liam Dare.
I'm Finlay Anderson.
And I'm Blake Burns.
Thanks for listening and goodbye.